It's become somewhat of a series that we're doing here on Unseen Libya with Jimmy and JoAnne Moriarty. How are you guys doing tonight?
Very good, Jason.
Nice to see you, Jason.
Nice to see you both as well. You're looking very well today, coming to us from Texas. But of course, you guys have the best firsthand information from the Libyan tribes and what's going on in Libya. It's been said by members of the Defense Intelligence Agency, including Michael Flynn, who we're hearing today. Judge Sullivan has just delayed his sentencing hearing indefinitely, which is quite interesting. Seems like good work being done by Sidney Powell.
That'd be great.
Sure is.
Yeah. So what we're featuring in the image today, and this is what I was talking about with regard to this series, we've got Sarraj and Erdogan in this. I mean, I can't, every time I see a picture of Erdogan, I've never seen a more nonplussed looking individual, no matter what's going on. The guy's just standing there with a sour puss on his face. But tell us exactly what's going on between Sarraj and Erdogan. You've told the audience before, but for people who maybe don't know, that we've got our sponsor exclusive show coming up right after this preview on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty and patreon.com/Crowdsource the Truth. They might not be exactly up to speed on what's going on between Erdogan and Sarraj.
Well, Erdogan, his plan or his goal in life is to reestablish the Ottoman Empire. And the old Ottoman Empire run by Suleiman the Magnificent was absolutely one of the most bloodthirsty, horrible reigns of terror that the world had ever seen. I think it functioned for 350 or 60 years. And he's now calling himself the Magnificent One. And he's been given a green light by all the bad guys to reestablish the Ottoman Empire. And so that's why you see him doing the dirty tricks in Syria and in Libya and other places. But that building behind him is his castle that he just finished. Mm-hmm. And it's larger than any castle ever built by anybody. And it cost in Turkey $500 million. That would be anywhere from $5 to $50 billion here. And it's huge. It's got a leg on either side. It's absolutely opulent. You know, it's the most elaborate, most ostentatious structure that's been built really in the last couple of hundred years. And the Libyans,
for a personal residence.
And the Libyans don't have any medicine. They don't have any water. They don't have any power. They don't have anything. But that sorry bastard Sarraj just sent $4 billion of the Libyan people's money to Erdogan.
Mm.
Well, let me tell you, if people don't know, Sarraj is the head of the GNA. It's the Tripoli government that
UN
was
appointed government.
Yeah, the UN appointed the government from outside Libya and moved it in, and then recognized it as a legitimate government of Libya. It's made up of Muslim Brotherhood, and the Libyans never voted for it. They don't recognize it, but it has full power over the Libyan central bank because all of its little minions are there in Tripoli.
That's been given to them by the UN, and of course by the criminal bankers. They recognize Sarraj as the legitimate government, even though the interim government lapsed. Their UN charter, if you would, lapsed 3 years ago. So it has no legitimacy at all. And every country in the world has acknowledged that it's nothing but a terrorist supporting entity. Even the UN representative wrote a long report and said that for Libya to function at all, they got to get rid of the Muslim Brotherhood government out of Tripoli. Yet it sits there and the UN says nothing. They still recognize it. We're going to go into that in detail. We're going to go into the long-term relationship between Libya and the United States.
Also, the Supreme Court, I think it has 19 members or something in Libya. They have a Supreme Court has found completely in all of them, not one dissenting vote. All of them found unanimously that the GNA, the Government of National Reconciliation, or whatever they call it, has no
National
authority.
Accord, I think they call it. Which is an ironic name, right? Because there's actually no national accord. They just named it that.
There's no. It goes back to NATO. But they have no authority to use Libyan money. They have no authority to make agreements with foreign countries. They have no authority in Libya to do these things. And yet they continue to do them, and nobody stops them. The African Union, all the Arab leaders, the Arab League, all the people in Libya, all the tribes have requested many, many times for the UN to de-recognize this government, and that it will absolutely stop the fighting in Libya. It will be finished.
But the UN is a criminal organization. It's agenda driven. It has nothing to do with trying to bring peace or anything. And a good example of what they do in Libya is every representative to the United Nations has not been a Libyan. They pull one out of this, one out of
They
Spain.
had one out of
The current
Spain.
guy's out of
they one out of Germany. Now they have one out of Lebanon.
Not any Libyans. So the Libyans have no voice, yet their lives are being continually raped and robbed and plundered by a criminal UN organization and a criminal government in Tripoli, and all the big guns keep their mouths shut.
The Libyans have had enough, and so the tribes came together to back the Libyan National Army. The Libyan National Army was disbanded basically by force of NATO. They threw it out of the country. Most of the people had to leave or be thrown in prison and tortured to death. It has come back together. It was a little ragtag group that Haftar sort of started, but there's a whole other story there. But the Libyan tribes looked around and they said, this is our only choice to clean our country. We have to join together. We have to have one army. So the Libyan National Army is joined by all the tribes. It is the People's Army. And they call it Haftar's army. It's a terrorist army. They give it all kinds of names.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's the Libyan People's Army, and it's cleaning Libya. It has cleaned all of Libya except for maybe 15% of Tripoli and the Misrata area. And this is why for 8 years you saw nobody talking about doing anything to fix Libya.
All the world leaders completely deaf and dumb to what was going on in Libya. All of a sudden, since the Libyan people are clawing their way to freedom, they're spilling their blood, they're absolutely fighting with every ounce they've got to take sovereignty back. And now all of a sudden, all the foreign governments are ready to step in and requesting or demanding or organizing some kind of ceasefire, which the ceasefire only functions on the Libyan army. The other side never stops. And
we've been covering, sorry to interrupt you, Jimmy. We've been covering for the past few weeks these various international conferences that have been happening in Berlin and elsewhere, where everybody but Libya is speaking about what should be done with Libya. I wanted to ask you both a question. James is with us in the comments here right now, and he comments that the Constantinople prophecy, I'm not familiar with that, but I guess it has something to do with, Turkey, Istanbul used to be Constantinople. Do you know what that is, the Constantinople prophecy?
Well, no, I know that the reestablishment of the Ottoman Empire, that may be the what that is. I'm not really familiar with that, but the fact that Erdogan has proclaimed that he is going to set up a new caliphate, he'll be the Khalifa, and he's absolutely got the imprimatur or approval of all the world leaders, including Trump and Putin to a certain extent, etc. And so and if you look at the Ottoman Empire, it was huge. It went all the way into Europe, North Africa, all over. It was huge.
My personal opinion is that he's being used by the dark side to create chaos.
Yeah.
Because he controls these terrorist mercenaries.
He's Muslim Brotherhood.
Hundreds of thousands of them that he sends to Syria, he sends to Iraq, he sends to Afghanistan, into Libya. And this is why the African countries are standing together and standing up for Libya, because they said, we know if Erdogan is allowed to continue to bring these mercenaries in, they're going to filter into all our countries. And we can't have that. So this is one of the things we're going to talk about tonight. And Jason, I wanted to say, because if anybody doesn't know us from the past, who we are, we were doing business in Libya. We started in 2007 in the oil and gas industry, and we were invited back on a fact-finding commission in 2000. We were there off and on since 2007.
We had more than $5 billion worth of business.
But we were there many times. We knew Libya
we were
very
there
well.
From 2007 on.
We were invited back on a fact-finding commission when NATO started its attack on Libya. We were there in Libya from May of 2011 until September of 2011. We were eventually captured by Al-Qaeda, sentenced to death. And Al-Qaeda were NATO's forces. Let me make that very clear. Al-Qaeda was who NATO was supporting in Libya. And we escaped by 3 miracles. And it's a long story. You can read it at our website, Libyan War of the Truth. But a lot of people don't know, Jason, where we get our information or how we know Libya if they didn't know our past.
Right. And so it's important for people to visit.
So it's important for people to visit.
Wow. LibyanWarTheTruth.com. It's interesting for me to observe, there's a lot of people who are going to say, oh, don't address the trolls. But it's interesting for me to observe which shows on Crowdsource the Truth are trolled by whom and how. There's an interesting thing happening right now, and our viewership is remarkably low. So I hope that people will share this video, let people know about Jimmy and JoAnne and their website, LibyanWarTheTruth.com. It's also important to let people know about Unseen Libya, the sponsor-exclusive show on patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Again, I don't have any first-hand evidence. I don't have some report over here showing me that this or that is happening from such and such an IP address, but we're in a pattern here where there's enough things happening that I can observe that just don't seem to make any sense. It's a lot of
this last week they removed a video off of my YouTube that I don't even go to anymore because they removed so many videos. I think there's 30 videos left on it. I don't even go there anymore because every time I put something up, they would remove it. They removed another one that was up there for 7 years or something. Yeah. It was the true story of what happened to Gaddafi. Why Gaddafi was killed. And they said, sorry, this does not. What was their excuse? Violence and
incite to violence.
Incite to violence or something. And so they continue to take stuff off the internet for us.
Yeah, and they have some kind of keystroke program that they will type something and then send it out, and the people send it back to us because the grammar's horrible, the spelling's terrible, so they
also change links on my articles. They do all kinds of stuff to us all the time.
Yeah, it's really amazing. So this is a big part of the reason why we've been doing this show on Subscribestar and Patreon, where outside of the directly controlled by Google world, of course, these are sites that are potentially susceptible to other types of interference, but so far it's been very good, and they're not as easily manipulated as these Google-controlled or Twitter-controlled entities. So instead, there's this sort of direct effort to try to affect us right here. But I think people have really come to appreciate the information that the two of you are bringing forward every week. There's really nowhere else that you can get this kind of information. And what's happening between al-Sarraj and Erdogan, it's very important. What I've observed just from the conversations that we have had is that during the months that Adam Schiff and Nancy Pelosi and the morons in Congress have been trying to distract everyone with the socially engineered, totally fake impeachment. And, I know you guys have some criticisms of Trump. I'm not saying anything about that. But this was such an exercise in futility. It took America's collective eye off the ball and in part allowed some of this type of activity to take place between Erdogan and al-Sarraj and doing all of these things with Libya. And you told us about the waterway surrounding Libya, between Libya and Cyprus, that they're handing over to Turkish control. There really is a power grab going on in that region, and it's quite important, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. And there's not any reason that the rest of the world would sit still and allow such a phony, made-up bunch of memorandums of understanding. They're not even legal, not legitimate, and they're allowing those to stand. And there's Turkey out there in the Mediterranean, in this entire area, from here to here, this entire Mediterranean, the whole eastern side is being now exploited by Turkey. They've got their seismic ships out there that they're ready to start drilling for oil and gas all over the Mediterranean on Greek waters. In fact, all the ports of that entire area are now controlled by Turkey via a phony memorandum between the illegitimate government in Tripoli and Turkey, because both of those are recognized as legitimate UN entities. So the UN's got its mouth shut, and Turkey, and
Turkey doesn't physically control the ports, but they say
but they now technically own them.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
They technically own them in all the Mediterranean.
Sarraj continues to steal the Libyan money out of the central bank of Libya. That's the oil money. That's why the oil was shut off by the tribes, because they said, we're not going to fund the Muslim Brotherhood to bring terrorists in and kill our children.
And see, that's
And
collusion
Sarraj-
of the Federal Reserve to allow that money to flow that
Sarraj
way.
just sent $4 billion to Turkey to pump up the lira that's dying, the Turkish lira. And that $4 billion, he said, is part of the agreement he made with Sarraj, the illegitimate, unelected UN puppet government of Muslim Brotherhood there in Tripoli, to pay reparations, to pay back any Turkish company that had to leave Libya because of NATO in 2011. Any money they lost, Libya has to pay it back. Well, I got news for him. Erdogan was right in the front of that war. He's the one who started. Why would Libya have to pay for the Turkish? This is just criminal.
Well, and you guys didn't get any of your money paid back after your business in Libya was
Nobody's going
destroyed.
to get any unless they're Ottoman.
Let me read you guys the response here from James, because I asked him, what the story was with this prophecy, Constantinople prophecy. James is telling us that Putin is the commander-in-chief of Eastern Orthodox, Mount Athos, and it's a revised Roman Empire, Pope, Putin, Prince. I can't say that I know exactly what he's talking about, but this is some sort of prophecy, I guess, talking about the Pope, so maybe there's something to do with the Bible. He's saying North Cyprus occupied and looted by Turks. I mean, we're going back to some ancient stuff. Putin, Knights Templar, double cross, Armenian genocide payback. I don't know. Anyway, we're just about ready to head over to patreon.com/James and JoAnne Moriarty, patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, and subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth, where we're going to get into some detail about all of these things, about what Sarraj and Erdogan have planned for Libya, the latest news from the Libyan tribes. I hope everybody will join us over there. Looking forward to continuing the conversation with Jimmy and JoAnne. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.